Hey everyone, a brief story of woe from Mike.
It's hilarious. Nothing has happened for 2.5 months, and on the day that there's big news that we want to, I was needing to watch the Bettman and Daly conference call. It's beautiful in Buffalo for once. It's 80 degrees and no wind and sunny, and about 4 o'clock, the cable goes out.
I heard about
the Wi-Fi, internet, cable, the phone, everything goes out. It's like, and I call the company Spectrum, and they have no explanation. They don't know what's going on. So I'm outside, and my house is in like a dead zone when it comes to cell service. So I had to get in my car and drive half a mile to a parking lot where the reception was good to watch the conference call on Zoom off of my phone.
You're either a hockey blogger or a real creepy person if you know where the local Wi-Fi's are that in parking lots that you can get to. Like that's what I've noticed. Like either a hockey blogger or that, because it's like I mean I know where all of them are too. Like I can tell you where the closest free hotspot is I can park my car in front of.
Well, for people in Buffalo, it's the parking lot at the Galleria Mall. There's a tower like right there, and the strength is perfect. But it's like I'm the only one sitting in the parking lot because the mall's been closed since March.
All McDonald's, all Burger Kings, they're great. Park in front of a McDonald's or Burger King, you're good. You're good to go. They've got good Wi-Fi in there, both of them.
And to put the capper on the story, the Wi-Fi didn't come back until. Or the internet and phone and cable did not come back until 9 o'clock. So 4.5 hours, and there was no explanation from the cable company of what happened.
So I have a question for you guys. Do you guys know how the internet gets from like Europe to here? Do you know how that works? I read a whole thing about it the other day. Do you know how that works? You probably.
I would assume it's fiber optics under the deep in the ocean or something like that.
Satellites and stuff like that. I mean, there's different ways. The reality is it is actually literally cables that stretch across the ocean.
Yep.
And there are like 10 of them. They run out of the ocean, across the beach, like right into a building. That's literally how it works, which is like astonishing to me. Like I just find that incredible. Like so just faster, obviously faster than satellite because it's the speed of light. But it's like it's crazy, and like at times these things they break. Something happens like. Some ship runs into them and stuff like that.
Well, I was going to say, so hopefully it doesn't. A scene from Jaws 2 isn't reenacted, and Chief Brody doesn't put the cable in the shark's mouth because then the cable will be cut off to Europe.
No, exactly. Let's get started here. Ready? Here we go.
Yep. Okay.
All right. My backdrop's fine today because it's actually my backyard.
if that falls down, you're in trouble.
I promise you, that would be warping of reality, time, and space. This is actually. This is my deck, and I'm on my deck. All right, ready? Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, May 27th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello, and Spectrum blows.
I'm Jan Levine, and happy birthday to my younger daughter.
Hey.
Yeah, that's nice. Happy birthday. Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund, and we had the 18th birthday of my daughter on Monday. Watching the HockeyBuzzcast.
We already wished her. I mean, come on.
Have to be, stay. Anyway, this is the HockeyBuzzcast. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. The podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. We actually have things happening in the hockey world. Not like surprising things, but some a little bit strange, like a little bit odd. There's some oddities to it. And the interesting thing, though, is talking to other people and then hearing Brian Burke on Sportsnet and stuff like that. None of these things are just not in stone. Like the NHL has made like they're a little bit more. I mean, it's going to happen, but like the logistics of it all, obviously, are not in stone. For example, the first round matchups being a best of 5 is the players are pushing hard for that to be a best of 7.
John Tavares in a conference call with Shanahan and Dubas about 10 minutes ago just said that. He said 7. They would like 7 games, but the concern is 5 7-game series is a big bite to chew. It's like that's a lot of games.
Sure, and the teams who are playing as expected, the teams the top 3 teams Boston and St. Louis aren't happy about it. That came out in the media conference call yesterday. I mean, teams who won the conference, like Boston, won pretty handily. Like they should be the top seed. I mean, it's no one's going to catch them. Excuse me, but yeah, I think that there's still a lot out there. The NHL is still pushing kind of hard, and the players. I think at the end of the day, what I've learned is that the NHL will kind of go with what the players want on this thing. They are kind of
right.
They already said that the seating, and they kind of admitted this yesterday. The whole concept of seating or brackets. We talked about this a lot yesterday. The seating or bracket concept is they're kind of leaving it up to the players, whatever the players want.
I mean, Jan, go to you first. They really left a lot of things, and I think it was a smart thing to do. They left a lot of things open, and I was saying to Russ earlier, we're talking about the tentative timetable that was laid out was early July for training camp, late July for the start of the playoffs, or maybe even early August. But there's nothing saying that can't be moved up if the trends are going where the rate of infections are going down and there's less concern. I mean, they can go one way or the other. They can push it forward further, or they can move it back a little bit. So I think they were smart to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about everything was related to logistics, right? And in this case, you're planning for something that is a somewhat of a moving target, which is why they need to be flexible associated with it, which is one of the things that I think we've all appreciated, from what we've heard so far, and in the interaction between the players, is there truly seems to be, at least in this case, a combined effort that's ongoing. It's not one side dictating and the other side following. It's both sides really seem to be somewhat in lockstep, which is a variant from what we've seen in baseball and some other sports, which is nice to see. Now, granted, we all know down the road that negotiations when it comes to a new CBA, all bets are off. But in this case, because both sides recognize that there is a benefit to getting back on the ice from a fiscal perspective and also finishing the season, that then maintaining that level of flexibility to be able to provide some cushion either way is needed. So to me, as you said, Mike, it's really, in my opinion, I think this is really the only way to go, because the fact there's so much uncertainty that we won't know about, and that you're gonna have to keep evaluating it every couple of days or every week to figure out what your next step's going to be.
And Russ, you made a point this morning, and last night, I mean, I'm listening to a political talk show on a radio on a radio station in Tennessee, and CBS Radio breaks in for their half-hour update, and the second story was the NHL coming back. So they got a lot of positive PR
today.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Russ. But
I was just gonna. Oh,
go ahead.
That's something that I had said weeks ago, that I just felt like the first league that actually came out with a formulated plan would get the most public, the most PR push. And they did. They led on, sports radio here in Philly. They led everywhere. They probably were on all the major networks besides sports. You knew that this would happen. They really took a leg up on all the other leagues in regards to that and their plan. Now, that doesn't mean we're still not going to nitpick on the plan, because I've got like a laundry list. Yeah. I don't know when you want me to talk about some of these things, but otherwise it's fine. It's just it needs some refinement, like anything else.
Well, one complaint
I was going to say is that today I heard Bettman on the Dan Patrick show. Mm-hmm. I'm driving around. This afternoon I was listening to XM right before we came on, and he's going to be on the Russo show. The whatever that is. Just the guy from the FAN, right? Used to be at FAN.
Oh yeah, Beningo probably.
No, Chris, whatever.
Oh, Mad Dog Unleashed.
Chris Carlin, you mean?
No, Mad Dog Unleashed.
The Mad Dog show. Yeah, that's the one. He's going to be on that this afternoon. So, I mean, you're talking about, these are, of course, sports people are dying for news. So it's good to get news out there of any kind.
Well, the only thing that I've heard in terms of a complaint of the conference call and the release of info was from a few outlets that said, okay, like TSN was not allowed to broadcast, or was not given the conference call to broadcast. It was only allowed to rights holders, which meant Sportsnet in Canada and NBCSN. So ESPN Plus, who carries NHL games, was not allowed to broadcast the Bettman press conference. I checked ESPN News and it was not on there. So they limited to the rights holders. And I'm like, this is big news. It should have been out everywhere.
Yeah, but they got to throw the rights holders a bone here too.
I guess. I mean,
it was a content fight.
I don't have an issue with it because exactly. They have to. I mean, the rights holders they lost a lot of money because the games, that they already paid for and they're not getting. So there's things there. I think.
So Eck, I got a few things. So and this doesn't include the draft. We'll talk about that after. But on this list, clearly they haven't decided yet between the bracketing and how they're going to do it. We all talked about it. I still think they should do bracketing, even if it's not for my old reasons of how it reseeding affects it or doesn't.
Yeah.
Just because they can have a bracket show. Let's go with that because that's another sellable item for the NHL while everybody's waiting. That's one thing.
Yeah.
They didn't talk about how they're going to house these players at all, but I feel like since they do feel confident they could overcome anybody testing positive, you have to single file them in hotel rooms. You can't let anybody share. Like, to me, I know they used to do that. I don't think you could do that now. So that's another thing. I'm okay with like what Elliot Friedman said, that 2 West Coast teams get the hubs. Personally, I think Vegas and Minnesota are the 2 best. I think they're the 2 best out there. I've been to most of these rinks. Now, if I did have to throw in an East Coast, just to be fair, I would throw in Pittsburgh. Now, again, I don't want to totally kill the Canadian ones because if they're able to work out their differences, like Daly was putting on pressure, then fine, include one of them. But don't put it in a dense city like Chicago, which is not the easiest rink to get to. Don't put it in Vancouver, which is not the easiest rink to get to. And travel in that city is bad anyhow. You got to think about those other things too. But, those were a couple things that jumped out.
Well, Tavares said something interesting in the conference call, and I'm quoting Stephen Wino's tweet here. He said, NHL players want to feel safe when the league returns, but also want to be as human as they can in the hub cities, not just going from hotel to arena and back. They want to feel safe, but have some freedom. If that's the case, then it can't be. I mean, I don't know. Like, okay, Vegas is going to open up.
That's the issue, Vegas.
And that's
going to be full of people.
Right. Now, I know that, like, one of the potential sites was the Orleans Hotel, which I think we talked about last week. There are 1,000 rooms in that hotel. There's an entertainment facility. There's other things. So there would be the ability to go to restaurants, to have like something outside of just playing.
And it's off the main drag. And everybody knows if you stay in Vegas, and again, I only do it out of cheapness, but if you're off the main drag, you're really off it. It's like that is the least populated, densely populated area in that city. The main drag is where most of the people are.
Yeah, and the prices change drastically too, actually.
They do.
And but for this, the NHL, obviously, I mean, does anybody else think that it's a little dangerous to put 12 hockey teams in a hotel casino?
No, I don't. I mean, again,
I was thinking about the hotel bar more than the casino.
No, but I mean,
Jaromir Jagr would have liked it in his day.
I mean, can you imagine? Like, they're the only ones allowed in the casino, and you've got what's going to be happening? I mean, they're going to lose so much money in there.
That's up to them, right?
Yeah, I know, but it's. I mean, I talked to a player this morning. He said, "I want to know if." He said he wanted me to ask this question yesterday, and I said, "I really don't think I can ask it." If the other players will be allowed to attend the games of the other teams, and just and watch them because from the stands, he's like, he's like,
you're not going to allow that, I'm sure.
Probably not.
He's like, why not? Because I mean, they're already quarantined together, eating at the same restaurants and stuff like that. He's like, the idea is, if we want to go, I don't want to sit there. I'd rather go and watch the games. I mean, will the scouts from other teams be allowed in to watch the games?
No, because I'll tell you why.
Wouldn't
it's the same as the German coach going out for toothpaste. You are now increasing your odds that something is going to happen by letting those players be in those games. If that player, let's say he gets infected that night and then goes into that game, now he may be infecting 2 teams instead of just his team.
Yeah, and low down on the list of I mean, it's high for somebody like myself or Russ or you, Ak. Basically, what you heard yesterday is no media is going to be allowed. I mean, media is going to be Zoom conference calls. The rights holders who are doing the broadcasters, they may be in the buildings, but they're going to have. I think they were talking about camera angles, so they could probably do something like against the glass where they couldn't do that when fans were there. But in terms of like media having access, that increases the odds of infection with having media in there interviewing players. So right now I think it's going to be basically like it's been since mid-March where everybody's been separate and sequestered.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no point in it not being. And along those lines, before Jan has to go, and then we'll get back to some of Russ's other issues too. I know Jan's a technology guy like I am. And so what I wrote today was I just talking to some people at different leagues about like what's going to happen here. If you love sports, this might be a good time to try to get a VR headset. Like it sounds like weird, like I'm trying to sell VR headsets here, but honestly, there is a reality that's coming on here that I'm telling. Like the NHL, they hinted towards in the media conference. There's new ways we're going to film and stuff like that. They're talking about doing it in VR, and anybody who's watched like a VR game, I don't know if you have any VR headsets, Jan. I don't know if you have it. So like there's a couple. This is like this. I have one here. This is called the Oculus. Oculus makes 3 different kinds. This one's like $200. There's one that's $400, and then there's one that's like ridiculously expensive. Don't get that one. But
I was gonna say, are they durable? Because when Leaf fans, when the Leafs lose to Columbus, that they get thrown against the wall, will it survive?
Yeah, they are. They're amazing. The technology's gotten cheap enough and amazing. I showed Russ one at the Stanley Cup Finals last year. To watch like a basketball game or something like that, it's like this is the way. This is the closest you're gonna get for a while to watching sports live, and I can see these selling out pretty quickly in places for sports fans. If the NFL, MLB, and the NHL goes, if they don't have fans, it's not that expensive, and they're really not that expensive at all. Like someone that there's this perception that you have to get like a big computer for them because you used to have to, like the first one I had, you had to have like a $1,500 computer to work with a $1,000 headset. Now they're $200 or $400 completely contained in the headset. So it's not even, it's expensive, but it's not. And it's just a great quarantine device in general. But it's just I really can't say enough about it. But I honestly think that if you're looking around, if you're like just on Amazon or on Best Buy or just even at a Target or whatever, I just talking to people, they're really going to go heavy in this. So it's just kind of like a little hint to people out there to pursue. Like if you really want to, it's going to be hard to get them. I think right now you can. So it's just a thought. But anyway.
So it would be like toilet paper 2 months ago. Yes.
Except I'm telling you, I don't like basketball. You guys know this at all. But I watched the entire basketball game with this on as if I was sitting at courtside, and it was pretty awesome. It was
hard to get as a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, but with all the sports fans out there, and especially if NFL games start without fans for some reason, I could see like these things being incredibly popular. So just a thought. It really is worth it. I think that's the thought. Jim, what did you think of the press conference before you have to get out of here? I know.
And I thought they did a very good job. Bettman and Daly both clearly were on point. When he did the original conference, you can tell he was kind of reading off the teleprompter. But when he did the one with the media, right, and all the questions coming in, message never changed. He did a good job in terms of getting across that message. He did a good job also, in my opinion, of balancing between what's known and what's unknown, and being very clear in terms of, hey, this is still to be determined, right? These are still things that we're not 100% clear on, not giving answers that we don't necessarily know or answers that are not grounded in reality. So to me, I thought they did a very good job in terms of laying out, where we are, but also there's still some roadblocks that have to get surmounted. But the two sides appear to be somewhat in lockstep. Granted, even though, the vote was 29-2 from the players, and we also know some of the consternation we heard, they also referenced that, saying we know that this is not a perfect solution, but we view that this is the optimal solution for everybody involved, which I thought was well done as well.
Yeah, I thought so. I agree. I think it's interesting when Bettman and Daly do something together like they did in the press conference. It always feels like Daly is like there for support. And I kind of feel like that Daly is going to be the commissioner of this league eventually, and it's always like I always think
it's a fait accompli.
Yeah. This is like a transitional thing. Like you have him in there, so we're comfortable talking to him in the future.
Well, you can clearly see that Daly has been given certain items as part of this return to play situation where he's the point guy. Say the Canadian hub city and the border situation, because he was pretty definitive during the conference call, and then he did an interview with James Duthie from TSN where he basically said if there's not a change, as much as we want to have a Canadian hub city, if there's not a change in the Canadian policy, then you can pretty much rule out to Canada for a hub city, and that I think that's realistic. I mean, I think it's a complicating factor for Vancouver or Edmonton or Toronto to be one of those. Now, ironically, in the conference call today, Kyle Dubas, even though these teams cannot make it mandatory that their players return right away, he basically said most or all of the Leaf players are on their way back to Toronto right now. Yeah. So they're gonna get rid of that 2-week quarantine in the first 2 weeks of June, and then be able to practice around the middle of June.
You figured that was going to happen.
Sure.
Here are some things they're going to have a hard time enforcing. So the first one is, like, I get the 50 person mandate for the team, right? Yeah. And especially if you're on a flight, which eventually somebody's going to be going to the Stanley Cup, right? Back and forth. So that part I get. But owners and GMs and assistant GMs could sit up in the boxes that are going to be empty, right? Socially distant, never near the players. I can't imagine they're going to say, we're 53 over, you guys can't come in for this game, if that's the owner and the GM and the assistant GM.
Well, I said to Russ earlier that it could be very as simply as the NHL saying, you have 50 rooms, one person per room. There's your limit. If you're over 50, they're staying somplayce else.
Yeah, but the owner could stay there and buy a suite, right? Like
Well, maybe, but I mean,
it has to be really strict. I think they're really going to have to be strict.
We'll see. I mean, I think that will be one that would be hard to track.
About when you say the Stanley Cup Finals, I know I talked to somebody today, and there is still hope in their minds that the Stanley Cup Finals could be normal. Like,
right. I figured that when Bettman said, "I hope to see all of you soon." I think that is the pie in the sky hope, is that by Cup time there could be some normalcy. I got that feeling too.
Yeah, they would love to have a regular Stanley Cup Final in the two cities with fans and the whole 9 yards. And they're thinking, maybe by September that's doable.
The other thing scheduling wise that I sort of took umbrage with was, because I don't know where it came out yesterday. Somebody was saying that the Winter Classic would be the start of the 2020-21 season. Honestly, I don't think, if they want to play an 82 game schedule, which is everything I've heard, is they definitely want to play 82 games. I don't see how they start in January, because if they start in January, that means you're probably playing 16 games per month through May, and then your playoffs are June and July, and then you're not having the Stanley Cup award until late July, and then August for the draft and free agency.
I mean, I've talked about this a lot. Like, I wrote an article really early on when I was told the plan, which is the more days change, the more it ends up back at that plan that I originally wrote about. Like, and that is that they would start in January, and that they would shorten the season a little bit. Like, there'd be like 72 games. Nothing crazy, but just like starting. I mean, and Bettman has pointed out before, we know, like he even said yesterday, unfortunately, we're a league that knows how to do things when things get through it, when we're not playing. Like, they know how to shorten seasons. They know how to rearrange schedules. They know how to be flexible with things. They know this. They have way too much experience doing this, usually by their own fruition. Yeah. But they know how to do it. So to them, 82 games, is like greatly ideal, but you're not going to cancel the season in December if they say you can't have, if somehow they say you can't have people in the stadiums until January.
No, I didn't scoff at the January. I thought they could do that. There's no way they would start the Winter Classic as the start of the season for two reasons. The first one is they always want to make sure the Winter Classic has some sort of decent attendance to actually put on the production. And there is no way of guaranteeing attendance if you say, hey, January 1st is the start of the season, and that's the Winter Classic. And the last thing they want to do is all of a sudden start changing that and pushing that back because of the ticket price and the complications. Yep. It's a one-off situation. So I don't think they're going to mess with the Winter Classic at all as an opener. I think that would be ridiculous. It would make the season so much harder logistically. It really would.
I have to clean up something that's going on in the chat room, because they're talking about this, my Mexican Coke, and they're confusing it with something. So I'm just going to take a break for a second from hockey.
Okay.
This is not Drink a Toast, okay? Drink a Toast or Take a Boost, which is only available in 2 counties in the state of New Jersey. This is not. This is straight up Mexican Coke, which is available throughout the country and Mexico.
Yeah, a lot of Mexican restaurants have it.
And let's stress this: it's Mexican Coca-Cola.
Right. If you're just listening to this podcast, if you're listening to
I mean, we
podcast,
don't know what the ingredients are. Right?
Coca-Cola bottle, not like a line, not like lines or anything like that. This is Coca-Cola.
This isn't like Ty Cobb Coca-Cola from Georgia in 1920, which had cocaine in it.
Right. This is by far, like, if you're going to drink something that's bad for you, which Coke is, and I only drink. The only reason I have this is because my daughter's birthday party. She loves this stuff, so we had a 12-pack of this. So I'm drinking this because I usually don't have now. But yeah, if you're going to drink Coca-Cola, this is the only way to do it. It's like, bottom line, it's just like, it's real sugar, not cane or whatever. This is real, not whatever they call it.
Corn, high fructose corn.
Yeah. Honest sugar. That's what makes it good. But drink a toast is something else altogether. That's like 10 times the caffeine in it. That's like 10 times the caffeine of Coke without carbonation in it. It tastes a little bit like Coke syrup, but
it's like Jolt Cola on steroids.
Yeah, so that's the difference. There you go.
I think we should morph into the draft lottery because there's a lot with that.
I'm really confused about this, Russ. Still,
yeah. See,
I don't want to be a jerk because first of all, anybody. It's funny they've been playing the press conference today for people out there, and they NHL edited it before they put it out there because in the press conference about half the people like muted when they started talking, and you know if quarantine has taught us nothing, I feel like quarantine has taught me to unmute myself. Should be a T-shirt, you know, like just unmute yourself. Anyway, so
it's under audio settings. Anyhow,
let's talk.
These are the odds in case, you know, you can go to my Twitter feed. It's on there. But at any rate, here were the things. And it's funny because guys were kidding around, writers that I know. And I said, hey, you shouldn't have left math class early, you know, because that's would have been helpful for this. But okay. So best case scenario is one of the 7 teams handle all the 3 spots when they do that first drawing. If that happens, nothing else matters because then everything else would fill in based on the winning percentage after they get knocked out of the tournament. We know that's not going to happen. Worst case scenario is 3 of the placeholder teams go 1, 2, and 3, and then we have to start figuring out what phase 2 and phase 3 are while Steve Yzerman is cursing up a storm.
Yeah.
Now this is the thing.
Really interesting things about this. Go ahead.
They run 3 separate draws for the top 3 picks. Right now, the 8 teams that will be eliminated in the qualifying round, they have collectively a 24.5% chance of getting that pick, and that percentage goes up for the second pick and the third pick because as each pick is determined, that takes one less out of that top 7 group or out of the bottom 8 group. So I mean, there is a possibility. I mean, it's very unlikely that all 3 picks will not be. Will be one of those 8 teams. I'm sure that probably 2 of the top 3 picks will be, Detroit, Ottawa, Buffalo, one of those teams. But if it gets to a point where one of those 8 teams that gets eliminated in the first round gets one of the 3 picks, their odds of winning that pick or being selected in that phase 2 is 1 chance in 8. It's 12.5%. That's a lot better than say what a team that just missed the playoffs, like say Florida, would have had in a draft lottery. It would have been like a 2% or 3% chance. So there, I think it improves the chances of teams that lose in the first round. And I looked at it from a Toronto perspective because they traded their first round pick to Carolina, but it was a top 10 protected. They have a chance of drafting in the top 10.
Can someone explain this to me too? Because this is what I tried to ask Russ yesterday. Maybe you guys can explain it. And I don't know if did you understand what I was saying, Russ, in my text? My thinking is this: like if these teams are going to know, and by the way, but as an aside to an aside, this is that I want to say that this feels like a solution that the NHL is like pissed off that they didn't have the draft already. This feels like they were like in a room, in a conference room, and they're like, fine, we'll not have the draft in June. We're going to have to do this,
apparently the one thing that the return to play committee wanted to make sure was possible did not happen was a team advancing to winning the Stanley Cup final and getting the first pick at the same time. So the only way that happens is if a first round pick was traded, like the Rangers getting Carolina's pick.
Right.
You know, I mean that's possible, but not.
Let me get back to my aside. Okay. So it's just in meetings like this where like you come up with this anyway. All right. So the side to the side is this: if you're a team, say you're the Montreal Canadiens, we talked about the Montreal Canadiens if they have left or not in there. Will they know that they have the first overall pick if they lose in the first round?
No, because
that's what I'm the way it's described, it sounded like they're like, no, well, we're going to win this round because we're going to have the first pick.
If they lose in the first round and one of the 3 picks, let's say the first pick for this argument is one of the 8 losing teams in the qualifier.
They won't know that. They'll know that, right?
They'll know if they're a placerholder team that's in whatever spot they're in. Yes, they'll know that.
But
all that Montreal will specifically know is they have 1 chance in 8 of having the first pick. That's it.
Pretty good. And if they're one of the placeholder teams, like that to me, that's what's so confusing about this. Like, if it changes things drastically now to me.
It does, but I think they probably ran models that says the odds of this happening are very, 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 very slim.
Yeah, but the thing that will suck about this, and I know that Jeff Merrick talked about it on his podcast yesterday, and he loves what he would call chaos theory, is that the Pittsburgh Penguins could lose to Montreal in the first round and get the first pick in the draft.
Yeah.
If the first pick is one of the 8 teams, which would give them Alexis Lafreniere after getting Crosby, after getting Lemieux, or Edmonton if Edmonton loses to Chicago.
Right. Odds are it's not going to happen. But here's some other fun things, Zach. And I don't have hard numbers for this, but Mike and I were going over it. And so, as an example, with Ottawa having those 2 high picks, right?
Yeah.
We know they have the best chance for the first overall, but they're a virtual lock for the 3rd overall, no matter what. Just having those 2 picks, and they probably have a 40% chance, something in that range, for the 2nd overall.
Well, it's 25. It's 25% for the first pick, and then the odds go up.
Right. But remember, between those 2, because they have more balls in the game,
they have a better chance than all 8 teams.
Correct.
25% is a combo of their pick and San Jose. It's 13 and
a half. I know, but I don't think it works that way exactly when you're talking about percentages of an outcome. I don't think it's a hard and fast thing where you could just add those 2 up and say they have a 25% chance. I believe it's a greater chance than 25% for the 2nd pick.
For the 2nd pick, yes, it increases because say if Detroit gets the number 1 pick, then their 18.5% is gone, and then the chances of everybody escalates up.
Right.
So
right, but it's still just as whatever San Jose's pick would have been plus theirs.
Now, an interesting thing, Eck, would be, and this has never happened in the history of the league that I know of, is that Ottawa got the 1st and 2nd overall picks.
Right.
Yeah. That would be amazing. The closest thing we have to that would be the Sedins, right?
Yeah.
That Burke traded into that spot. It wasn't.
Yes, he traded.
Something that can never happen again because nobody would trade a 3rd or 4th pick or anything like that. I mean, that was a once in a lifetime shot.
So me just looking for something different, like I would write about that instantly just because that actually happened. But we don't know if that will happen. The other thing with the placeholders is, they probably should have given them lower odds. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know why the odds were 12.5%. I don't know the thinking behind that. They didn't explain it. They're probably never going to explain it.
Well, because they wanted to give all the losing teams equal odds.
Right. But the problem is, the losing team. So let's take Montreal as an example. They would have been 8th on this bigger list, and normally they would go anywhere from 8 to 12 if they lose in the first round.
Right.
But now, just because they've been picked to play in this play-in, like X said, if the first round doesn't go as planned, their odds increased by playing in the playoffs and technically not making the playoffs in the first go-round. That's a loopy thing.
Right. Hence the reason why I said they would probably prefer to not even be in the playoffs.
Well,
no, but now they actually do have some sort of incentive.
Mike. You didn't know this was the case. But and I understand the reasoning is stronger, but still, I'm going to go against it. But anyway, there is no reason why they had to do this. Like, I mean, to me, this is, I mean, the point, the real problem is they want to have this thing in June, right, or something
June
like that.
26th.
Right. They want it because they're not really going to start until July, the middle of July, and maybe not, and the actual playoffs won't be until August. So. And it could be later than that. So they want to do something now. So that's the whole point of this. But it's going to make things it's really going to screw things up if one of those 8 teams get it, because it just this is all about selling tickets to those teams that didn't make this. That's what this is all about. So it's all about, we got the 3rd pick overall. Yeah. Come by, or whatever. We have the 2nd pick overall. We're going to get Lafreniere. Yeah. Come by. So that's what this is about, and I get that. This is why the NHL wanted a June lot.
Correct. Yeah, it would have solved a few things. All right. So now we move further along in the thicket of this, and it continues to get weird because, again, anywhere between 8 and 12 still has a chance to get that top pick, which in a normal year their chances I think would be like 2% or less, 1.5, 0.05. So again, that's kind of loopy, and I don't know why that wasn't sort of course corrected. So there's no year we can look at and show similar results. You can't even go with the draft calculator anymore when we're fooling around, because that's set completely.
Well, they're gonna have to rejig the draft simulator. Based on although like I said, the odds are the same, but we don't know those 8 teams.
There's too much unknown.
Right, exactly. But
that's the weird thing.
Yeah, but
and it was just someone is saying in the chat room, and I'm checking into this, that it was just reported that Jeff Blashill will be back for the Red Wings.
Helene St. James. I was going to segue to that, because one of the things that we've seen is a lot of the teams, especially the 7 teams that are not going to continue, came out and had their end of the season pressers. I was on the conference call with Jason.
Hold that for a sec, because I want to just finish up on the draft part.
Not first, yeah.
So we know in the lottery, when we know in the lottery is we vaguely understand it. We don't know when the actual draft is.
Right.
So, like, if you're a draft prospect now, you may be playing at the time that they're having the draft.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And the KHL announced this morning that they're starting their season in September. So any Russian prospect is probably going to be in the middle of their season when this draft is held in October, probably October.
All right, so going with the maximum chaos theory, let's say Askarov starts his first game in September, breaks his leg.
Yep.
Now we're talking about the draft. How is that going to affect him in the draft? He's going to drop in the draft.
Of course. I mean, will there be some players that just opt not to play? Probably.
There may be, because there may be some agents that say, you better wait.
Yeah, you're not playing until after the draft or whatever. Or you're not playing until after you sign or whatever it's going to be.
No, I don't think that's going to be the case with the CHL or the NCAA, because from all the indications, they may not play until December or January either. But with the KHL, they're going to forge, at least right now, they're saying they're going to forge forward. So that might affect Russian players who are, who stock, we've talked about how their stock may fall because they don't know if they can get these players out of Russia. Now here's another hurdle.
Okay, so now something else. Mm-hmm. So for to answer X thing where he wants the maximum amount of trades and everything, they have cut down on this severely, because you've got to get through at least the play-in round to know who the top 12 are. And if you're one of those teams that's desperately looking to make a trade to move up in the draft or whatever, you can't even talk to anybody until you're in the top 12 and then have a better idea of what the field is.
Well, First of all, Mark Bergevin has to be dancing a jig right now, because he's going to have a chance to trade his picks for players with the draft being after the season in September or October. So that was a positive of today. But one of the things that was interesting that first of all, it was announced yesterday. John Worrell of Associated Press broke it that Botterill is going to stay as GM of the Sabres. one of the, the Sabres are very unusual. They have 11 unrestricted or restricted free agents.
Yeah.
6 of the restricted free agents are arbitration eligible. He basically said, I haven't really been proactive in terms of talking contract with these guys because I don't know where the salary cap is. Now, if you extrapolate that through all the GMs in this league, I mean, is that a pressure tactic on some of these players to get them cheaper because the great unknown of the salary cap?
Of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. No, I mean they're gonna it's all about leverage. It's like and they're absolutely going to use that as leverage. And I mean, right or wrong, it does exist. I mean, the salary cap is an unknown. The financial viability of the league next year is unknown. So everything is really it's out there. I mean, I listened to Donald Fear's interview last night too, and he was good about it. He was like, "Listen, this is a really interesting negotiation right now." And they asked him about baseball, and he's like, "I can't even get into baseball because I don't even understand baseball anymore." But I think that's like
no, but I think he's being honest with that, Mike. Sure. I know you laughed, but the reason being is what I had mentioned on another show last night, Eck, was with the way that Gary Bettman and Daly talked about the players' safety. They're the most important thing. Everything else, we have not heard any MLB owners come out and say, yes, we care about the players. They haven't said anything positive about the players. And that the NHL didn't even have to do that yesterday because everything was lined up. Everything was fine. The players were in agreement for everything, but they still said it. And that's something that Donald Fear is not used to. He's not used to it from the old baseball tactic. Yeah. And that's why he likes these guys better.
Yeah, this is very Bettman, though. I mean, Bettman, that's totally Bettman's personality, completely 100%. Like, that's coming from Bettman and Daly to a degree.
Yeah.
But from Bettman, who is like, he's safety first type guy. He's that way. And this is good. I mean, one of the more interesting things that wasn't really discussed, but kind of like someone asked how much this whole thing's going to cost. I mean, it's really it is a really expensive endeavor.
Like tens of millions is the guess.
Millions of dollars, without any revenue.
Right. Well, no, that's not exactly true. You're spending tens of millions to probably save $500 million in revenue that you're going to get from television because if you didn't do it, your debt would be $1.5 million or $1.5 billion, and instead it's going to be $1 billion. So it's something.
You're talking about remarketing a sport if it's in dormancy, which is harder, and that costs you money too because now you got to spend extra advertising just to kind of get things going again. So there's a cost for all that. And so I thought they did handle that part really well. They showed a lot of compassion to the players. The other thing that for all the nitpicking that hockey fans do, Gary Bettman is now not only the best commissioner in all the sports, he's also the oldest and the wisest. And it really showed. It really showed yesterday.
Well, the one thing that I think, and this is just continuing with what I was saying about Botterill, the one thing that, and the news that we just heard about Blashill, in late February, early March, I think it was a 50-50 proposition that Botterill was going to get fired based on how badly the Sabres were playing. A lot of people thought Blashill was on his last legs in Detroit, or, it would be even considered because they were such a bad team, but, they didn't have a lot of talent. Teams are taking the conservative approach here. They're saying, okay, we got him under contract. He's here. He can handle the situation. Let's chart a conservative course and not fire these guys because they don't want to go. They don't want to start with somebody new in a situation where a season is going to be starting in January and everything is going to be all mixed up. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad, but
I think it's good. But there's a new byproduct now of having the draft later, and that's again with those June 30th contracts running out, you were going to see teams either saying early, this guy's coming back, and if they don't say anything, then everybody's going to be writing about whatever executives that they know that whose contract is going to be up June 30th, and that is going to become something where the league can't really do anything about it, but it's going to be a popular thing to be talked about on air where normally we don't talk about it because it's just a normal process. But this year, there are going to be guys that get let go that don't have another job to go to.
And the other,
you're right, 100%.
And the other chilling effect, it's going back to the Sabres. Rasmus Dahlin entering the last year of his ELC, you would think that the Sabres would want to be proactive, like Ottawa was with Thomas Chabot, and get him signed a year early when he's available to get signed to a long-term deal. Botterill again was talking about, I'm not sure about the financial situation. The thing is, his contract signing an extension would not factor in next year's salary cap. I don't know if that's a factor of the Pagulas and their monetary situation right now, or if everything is so unsure that they're just going to wait and let that third year go through and then deal with Dahlin.
I don't think they'll let the whole year go through. I mean, they have the ability. They have the ability at any time during that year. They're the only team that can sign him. You know what I mean? So it's like it makes sense to like for both of them. I mean,
yes.
if I'm his age, if I'm Dahlin's age, I'm not signing right away either because I mean, who knows? Like
I don't know. I would rather sign now. I think it's going to be a worse prospect. Think about it this way, Ek. If I could get I'll tell you what I would do. If I could get a team to sign now, I am willing to take less than what market value was last year because I don't know what's going to happen next season.
That's true. I agree with that, but it could be, it could rebound. It's hard. I think you don't have to. I think you can wait a little bit. Is what I'm trying to think. Like, I'd wait a little bit.
And remember, Chabot got 8x8 on a max deal, and Dahlin was a number 1 overall pick. So he would probably get, I'd say, probably closer to 8.5, 8.75, something in that range, more than Aaron Ekblad got, and he's a former first overall pick. And I don't know whether the Sabres they have a ton of cap space, but again, they have 11 free agents. So I mean, I'm not sure how anxious they are to lock in that kind of money, even though that player is somebody they want to keep in the fold for the next 7 or 8 years. The other thing that I think we should talk about is the roster size.
Okay, actually, I got one thing before the roster size because I'll play into it. So, Ek, one more thing about how after you draft a player could affect next season. So let's say you're drafting a player over age or very close to the NHL, and you're thinking about throwing him in the AHL. Problem is, AHL may not start until January, right? Because they can't play without fans. So then where do I put this player? And there are going to be players that maybe shouldn't start in the NHL, but may end up starting in the NHL now simply because there's not a great place to put them because you might have to wait 2 months for the Canadian Hockey League. You might have to wait 6 months for the NCAA. We don't know about some of these others, so now you can get with the roster size.
And the perfect illustration of what Russ just said is during his conference call, Kyle Dubas indicated that Nick Robertson, their top prospect who led the Ontario Hockey League with 55 goals, who's 19 years old, so he's not eligible to play in the AHL next season. He will be part of their expanded roster and could play in the playoffs for them if they want. This is he's a very quick, very skilled player, played well in the preseason for them, had a great year for Team USA in the World Juniors, had a great year in the OHL. And at the absolute worst, he's going to be exposed to a playoff scenario with guys like Tavares and Matthews and possibly even get in the lineup. So that wouldn't happen that normally wouldn't have happened in a regular playoff scenario.
No, that's true. Or it's the kind of thing that we've seen happen like in the conference finals or Stanley Cup finals where they bring a guy in and just be around the team or whatever, and sometimes they sneak in, that kind of thing.
Or like a Charlie McAvoy where he plays a few games at the end of the regular season and then plays in the playoffs with the Bruins. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, Russ, though, that if Robertson played in the playoffs, that doesn't count towards the 10.
It doesn't, because even when Kreider did, it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. So there's no damage for them bringing him in. There's no reason.
They may amend those rules too, because again, as an example, the 8-game thing, right? Let's say you bring up somebody like Sandin this year went up for 6 games, right? But let's say you have somebody,
more than that.
No, but at the beginning of the year.
Oh, at the beginning of the year,
he ended up with 23, but at the beginning of the year he was at 6, and then they said, all right, you know what, we're not sure, and then they brought him back up when there were injuries, right?
So go ahead.
No, so I was basically going to say when you have a situation like this now, you might want to extend the 8 games and say, you know what, maybe 32 should be the norm for next year, just for the 1 year, because of the uncertainty of the other leagues. That might bridge the gap rather than letting a player just sitting dormant or just practicing with the team and not actually being on a roster somewhere.
I think you want them to play somewhere, or maybe teams. I don't know. Maybe there will be. Could you see like taxi squad type situations in the end? I mean, it's basically we're going to stay in the playoffs, but you could see it next year in the regular season, maybe if they did for a while. I think.
But there are things yet to be negotiated, and that's where I know that Donald Fear came out, said something through Greg Wyshynski, and there was things that still need to be negotiated, and one of those things is, okay, we know that the regular season is over with, but do the stats for the qualifying round count towards bonuses in players' contracts? That hasn't been determined. We don't know whether players again using Erasmus Sandin.
Mess.
What's that?
Bonus contract thing is a total mess right now. I talked
right.
to
That's a mess. There's no question.
And that's something that has to be collectively bargained or collectively negotiated.
I talked to somebody about this today, and the only fair way to do it is to figure out is to project it, to project out what they were going to do. Is assuming, but with that, you have to project out, not maybe they wouldn't have played the rest of the games in the season because they couldn't hurt, but I think you have to project out, what the their goals are and assists per game with the amount of games they had left, and that's the only way you can really do it.
And you bring up a great point because it proves that I was right when I picked David Pastrnak winning the Richard Trophy this year over Austin Matthews. I was right and you were wrong. But it's just a fact. That's all.
That's true. We were, but then again, I believe at the time you all laughed at me hilariously for even bringing up the fact that Matthews was going to be in that.
Well, he was third. He was close.
Yeah, he was close, but I don't think anyone
really second because they tied for first. So he was
going to be even close to that. So let's just bring that.
But I'll just use Sandin as an example. He played 28 games this year. The Leafs had 12 games left. If he would have sat one game, he would be under the 40-game mark. And the 40-game mark means that he would burn a year towards unrestricted free agency. More than likely, the Leafs would have sat him one game, so he didn't go over 40 games. So if you prorate it, then he won't burn a year towards UFA. But there are players out there that probably would have reached 40 games, that's something again that has to be negotiated.
Now, this is a tough year for the agents, right? Because for free agency, most players are not going to make what they thought they were going to make a year ago heading into free agency. That's just a fact of life. It wouldn't shock me, Ek, if we start to see after the draft lottery, well, not after the draft lottery, but I guess maybe a few weeks before free agency, some guys just taking themselves off the market and signing with the team they're with, simply because now the prospect of being a free agent is a little scarier because, look, there'll be a few teams that will sign a few high-end guys, but now what I think will happen is what usually happens, but I think now the divide will be greater for the high and the low, and some of those guys who used to be safe and always were going to get offered contracts may not now.
I agree with you, and I think that you'll see some solid one-year deals. I think you'll see 1 year deals, 2 year deals. I was hoping to be able to ask this question and how this affects Seattle, how everything is happening affects Seattle. Are they going to delay Seattle a year?
I think they're going to delay him a year. I just don't think they wanted to get into it yesterday.
I don't think they'll delay him a year for one simple reason. That's $500 million.
I know, but
they don't want to defer that money, Russ.
There's a lot of stuff going on though, and who's to say Seattle might not say, let's wait a year?
Yeah,
I mean, as long as they get the $500 million, I think the owners will be good with anything. But if it's delaying that money, no.
Okay, but here's all right. So if I'm on the Seattle side, what now I can't do is I got 75% of a season this year to send my pro scout or somebody around to look at players, but that's it. I'm not going to be allowed in these other games, so I'm just watching from TV. I don't know when the other leagues are going to start up next year for me to actually scout guys for the draft for the upcoming year that I'm actually going to be in. Now, granted, you can look at previous performance, but some players are brand new players to some leagues. This is not great for Seattle. They actually are working off a worse position than Vegas was when they came in.
But the other thing is that why I bring this up, though, and you're absolutely right, that by far they are. I mean, as is everybody right now. But I think the other thing you have to realize, too, is that when we talk about these contracts, these UFAs and stuff like that, that does play into Seattle.
It does, because they could sign all of them if they want.
Yeah, no, and if you're a player, you know that either that doesn't want to have to be protected. You want to be a free agent. You want to be a UFA when Seattle comes in.
Right. Well, just think of it this way. Look at.
Otherwise, Seattle could end up picking you, and you're stuck. So that when you're signing these contracts 1 or 2 years, that's why I'm curious, like why when Seattle comes in.
Look at the 5 teams who have the most cap space going into free agency next year: Ottawa, New Jersey, Columbus, Montreal, and Buffalo. Now that's just rough. There may be one team, but okay. Tell me who's knocking down their doors to go to any of those teams right now. Not a lot. But the thing is that players are going to have to, because they're the ones who have the most money available. So there might be a lot of 1-year deals but they don't want to. I don't think they want to stay in those places for one maybe other on top of the other. But they don't want to stay in those franchises long term. They want to get their money. They would like long-term security, preferably with the teams they want to go to.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I mean, I think there are some pretty attractive teams on that list, though. I mean, players do like to play in Buffalo. There are some players that, Montreal's a tough sell because of the taxes and all that situation. But there are some players that definitely go to Montreal. That definitely want to play in Montreal.
Well, yes, but they've had a tough time being able to find those players. Buffalo, until the chaos of the organization is straightened out, I agree. It's a great hockey market, and if the team is on the right track, yes, players want to come here, but it's going to be more like Jeff Skinner. You've got to overpay to get the guys to stay here.
You do. I think, it's funny. Almost every team in the league now, if you're bad for a long time, you're going to have that problem, except for Toronto, New York,
LA,
maybe, and maybe San Jose to some degree. But otherwise, that's what happens when you don't win.
Yeah, it's all about winning. It's always been about
it has nothing to do with the franchise and the city. And that's the biggest fallacy on earth, is like when somebody says, yeah, I'm not playing there because, like, I'll give you a good example. Like Mike Hampton, when he was a pitcher in Major League Baseball, he was becoming a free agent, and the Mets offered him $124 million, and he ended up taking like 140. And he said the reason he did was because the schools were better in Colorado, and everybody laughed at him because it was like, okay, sure. And then what ended up happening is 2 or 3 years into Colorado, they traded him, and then he got traded again, and he got traded again, and he got traded again because he wasn't worth the money. And so, end of the day, that's what happens with. When guys generally go for the money. It doesn't matter where the franchise is, really.
Yeah. Unless you have a no trade clause, that school thing is kind of ridiculous.
It is.
And also, it's just, I don't know. That's really the bottom line. It really is.
16 extra $1 million is a lot of cabbage there, Russ.
Yeah, whatever. He was already making. Mike, I'll tell you what. After my first $100 million, I'll stop counting. But
also makes that kind of contract also makes you extremely susceptible to being traded. That's the bottom line. So it's like
that's true.
By signing extra money there, you do, if you're not living up to it, you're going to get dealt, and that's the bottom line. So it's like, players never sign contracts like that with the thought that they might not live up to it. But the reality is that a lot of them don't.
Now, the other thing is that I forgot to talk about before with the bracketing or non-bracketing. So I saw that there was a reporter who wrote that, hey, if the Flyers just win 3 in a row, they'll be the top seed, right? Except the 3 in a row against 3 amazing teams in Tampa, Washington, and Boston. Now, again, I have to applaud the Bruins organization because they had the best record, and there's still a chance they won't be the top seed. And if you think about that, that would be awful in the sense of optics, because then the regular season really didn't mean as much, and they haven't said boo about it in public.
We're going to get into that because I'm sorry for yawning, but I didn't mean to yawn there.
That's all right. I bore everybody.
You were boring me. It was a very interesting point. It really was. But I think, I'm still looking into like the matchups of these things. Like I started working on a blog about that today. Like, do you want to, like, that team is going to play Pittsburgh or Montreal? Like, do you want to be that team? That's like that's a.
I'll tell you what, and that's why I think, if nothing else, it should be bracketed, because I think even though you're not supposed to look ahead, teams do, players do, And I think you should know, as when you're heading into the playoffs and you're a team that's waiting for the other outcomes, if I win, I'm gonna play either this team or this team. They should know that ahead of time. I think if you just shake it up 100%, I don't think that's fair, because I think then they've lost that edge too.
Well, right, and that's the thing. It's like right now the players apparently are in favor of reseeding for every round. If you're that number one seed, if you're Philadelphia and you win those 3 games and you're the number one seed, you don't know who you're playing until the entire qualifying round is completed. Because if the team that's 12, which is Montreal, wins over Pittsburgh, you'll play them. But if they lose, and if Team 11 loses, then you could end up playing the 10th team or the winner of Ottawa, winner of Toronto, Columbus. So
I'm glad you brought this up before we get out of here. As you guys know, we have a lot of important people that watch this show. And yesterday we were talking about this debate, and I said, the only reason I think they could do this was because of the bracket thing they went on NHL.com and all that.
Right.
Somebody came out and said, no, that's not the reason at all. They said, remember that if this allows us to start the second series before the first series is over.
Right.
Yeah, for overlap.
If you have brackets, you can do that.
And it also allows your team scouts and video analysis to go through and anticipate who you're playing in the second round and be able to get ready for that team, as opposed to if it's all jumbled, you have 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, and the other thing is, look, I don't want to be mean to teams that are going to play those 3 in a row for the seeding, but they really don't deserve to have a shot at the top spot, because they wouldn't have in any normal season. Like that's
Philadelphia shouldn't have. Philadelphia, just like I can't remember who number 4 is in the West. I think it's not Vegas, Colorado. It's Dallas. Dallas.
Yes, they shouldn't have a shot at it.
They have a shot at it. They really should.
But I will tell you this, Zach, of all the matchups, all of them, I think the most favorable for a first round win from a team, now forgetting Pittsburgh, Montreal, because we all think Pittsburgh's going to clobber Montreal. Maybe Eck doesn't, but
I do.
But for the most part, one that you wouldn't have thought could advance far in the playoffs this year could be Minnesota, in the sense that Vancouver is not a playoff tested team. They don't really have, now they have a really good goalie, but they have a lot of young players, and Minnesota has a lot of veteran players who have been rested now. And you know what? Even though Vancouver's the favorite in that because of the way the regular season ended, I would favor Minnesota personally.
Yeah, I also think Nashville gets a really good break dealing with Arizona, because I think that Nashville has that's first of all, that's team Nashville's own. That's one of the matchups why for some reason Nashville's owned Arizona. Nashville, this Nashville team's been a mess. They've been a real mess all year. They have not been all over the map. So
and the Taylor Hall factor now is a factor, because if all of a sudden Taylor Hall goes off in the playoffs,
and he'll be motivated to do so, because he's going into free agency and wants
he had a chance to reset. Wasn't a great season.
Right.
Yeah, he can totally turn it around right now. And in a way, Arizona, you could also argue that's getting a favorable matchup with Nashville. And those two teams have both been so inconsistent. So it's really that I think is one of the playoff series that I'm going to be most intrigued by watching. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll be back in tomorrow with John Shannon from Sportsnet. Will be joining us on the show tomorrow. And I'm going to be, since John Shannon is like, what people don't realize about John Shannon perhaps is that when he used to be with the NHL, when he worked at the NHL, he was like really instrumental in technological stuff. Like the goal cams inside the goals and stuff like that. These are Shannon's ideas,
Right.
So I have an idea I'm going to throw at him tomorrow that I love, and we're going to have fun with it. And I think it'll be right up his alley. So we'll talk to you about that tomorrow. And have a good day. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey.